Hi, my name is Kate Mall, and for my project presentation, I decided to focus on Shrek, the film, and more specifically, I decided to focus on Shrek himself as the main protagonist of the film and dive deeper into some of the social psychology terminology that best resonates with him as a character. So the film Shrek is very popular. It was made in the 2000s. In this film, Shrek is an outcast from the others. He's an ogre, and ogres are seen as dangerous, bad, murderous creatures. So Shrek lives far into the woods in a swampy area where he lives by himself. Ogres have a bad name around them because they are known for being violent. And the town basically goes out and hunts for them, but the people who hunt are pretty scared of them, so they end up running away when they see Shrek. He's a pretty grumpy guy, and throughout the movie, Shrek makes a companion, Donkey, and he ultimately becomes a better person since befriending Donkey, and he also meets Fiona down the road. So in 9.1, the textbook dives into aggression. Shrek is ultimately angry that he is an outcast from everybody, and he scares people away from him on purpose. And the textbook defines aggression as a behavior that is intended to harm another individual who does not wish to be harmed. An example of this is when the villagers show up to a swamp and they try and kill him or push him further away from his swamp. This happens in the beginning of the first movie. And to show his aggression, which is intended to harm another individual, Shrek roars in their face out of anger to scare them away. And this makes his hate, he ultimately hates everybody around him. And in chapter 9.1, it talks about nonviolence. And it defines violence as an aggression that has extreme physical harm, such as an injury or death as its goal. And although Shrek does show aggression, he is non-violent, so he does not kill, harm, or hurt people. He just tries to scare them away. Emotional or impulsive aggression. This can be defined as aggression that occurs with only a small amount of forethought or intent that is determined primarily by impulsive emotions. So a really good example of this is when he first meets Donkey and Donkey thanks him, Shrek yells at him to go away. Shrek does not do this because Donkey is a bad person or is trying to harm him, because he's being impulsively aggressive because he is a loner and he's grumpy towards everybody. So that is him being impulsively aggressive, and he yells at people who care about him to get out of his swamp. There's a specific scene where all of his friends that he makes down the line come over and are at his house, and he gets extremely mad and yells at everyone, and he scares his friends, which he later on felt guilty about. But that's him being emotionally and impulsively aggressive. So Bushman and Anderson founded instrumental or cognitive aggression, and this is when Shrek roared at people who want to kill him to keep them away. Cognitive aggression is basically like finding a reason, calculating a reason to justify aggression. In 8.1, we dive into self-concern and other concern. Specifically, Zaki and Mitchell define self-concern as when you're worried about your own well-being, needs, and interests. And Shrek shows a lot of self-concern. He's a pretty conceited guy. An example of this is when Shrek is constantly worrying about being judged by others, and he tells that to Donkey. So he's worried about his own well-being, his own feelings, and that's why he ultimately doesn't want to make a lot of friends, because he's worried about being judged. He's also afraid of telling Fiona about his feelings for her because he is scared of getting rejected. He has a pretty low self-esteem because people think ogres are ugly and scary. He is concerned that Fiona, his future wife, spoiler, is going to find him ugly, and he wants space all to himself. He's a pretty needy guy. He's only worried about himself. Yet there are a few scenes where he does show other concern, and other concern can be defined as considering others' feelings, thoughts, and needs, and not just your own. Although it is a rare trait for Shrek, he does show other concern at some points. The beginning scene where Shrek saves Donkey's life the town finds out that Donkey can talk. The people find out he can talk and try to kill Donkey, and Shrek saves him from the people. And that shows that he's pretty selfless, and even though he's a pretty grumpy guy and likes to be alone, that he is considerate of other people. And he also saves Fiona from the dragon. He puts himself in harm's way to selflessly save Fiona. So that also shows that he's not just concerned about himself. And there's a point where he lets Donkey live with him or stay with him for a period of time, even though Shrek really likes to be alone and does not like people in his swamp. He ultimately gives up his own feelings to help his friend. In 7.2, Davis and Rustbolt talk about liking and loving. Shrek was once a lonely ogre in his swamp until he met Donkey, who he likes and platonically loves, and then he met Fiona, who he romantically loves. And when they talk about liking and loving, they talk about physical attractiveness is a pretty big necessity to maintain a long-term relationship. And that being said, that's for actual romance, not a platonic relationship like it is with Donkey. So with Fiona, in the picture above, you can see that she was a beautiful woman, and in order for her to be with Shrek, she turned into an ogre. So she found Shrek physically attractive and decided to turn ogre for him. They have to be highly attuned to each other's needs, take care of each other, like Shrek and Fiona do, and Donkey does for Shrek, and Shrek does for Donkey. And Shrek and Fiona have a secure attachment. They see each other as safe and reliable partners, and they also talk about having fun is an important part of a relationship. So Donkey's a pretty fun, outgoing character, and that Shrek kind of leans on that because he's not the most outgoing, fun person, but he kind of piggybacks off Donkey in that, and he has fun with Fiona as well. That is the end of my project presentation regarding Shrek and some of the social psychological terminology used in our textbook.